Now, investigators in the Philippines have recommended filing criminal charges against the Vice President Sara Duterte for inciting sedition. It's in connection with a speech she made in November when Duterte said she'd ordered someone to kill President Ferdinand Marcos Junior if she herself was assassinated for publicly criticizing him. Duterte was impeached last week for corruption and violating the Constitution, and she's denied making threats and says the charges against her are politically motivated. Well, Al Jazeera's Barnaby joins us from Manila with more. Barnaby, so how worrying is this widening rift between President Marcos and his Vice President Sara Duterte?
You know, Darren, I don't know how much wider this rift between President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Vice President Sara Duterte could get. They have been at odds for more than a year now, and this feud has escalated in the last few months. Just last week, the lower house voted to impeach Vice President Sara Duterte. The lower house, of course, composed mostly of allies of President Marcos. But the National Bureau of Investigation, or the NBI, says that its decision to recommend the filing of criminal charges against the vice president, in particular inciting to sedition and grave threats, isn't a political one. Investigators say that they have been merely following the evidence, and the strongest evidence of which is the press conference, the online press conference that the vice president held back in November, where she said that she had already spoken with someone who had agreed to kill the president, the first lady, and the Speaker of the House in the event that she herself gets assassinated. Now, the vice president has denied that she made a threat, and she said that she never used the word assassin or assassinate. But the President Marcos, was very clear in his statement after what the vice president said in November. He said that there was a threat was made and that the person who made the threat should be held accountable. Now, it's also election season here in the Philippines, the midterm election happening on May 12th. And on the first day of the election campaign season, which was on Tuesday, President Marcos said that, or warned voters against allies of Vice President Sara Duterte, who he said never criticized China for what he says is Chinese aggression in the South China Sea. So it's open warfare, Darren.
Barnaby, just very, very quickly, how is this likely then to affect her impending impeachment trial? Just very quickly.
Yes. So one of the articles of impeachment is this threat, at least from the perspective of the president and the congressman, that the vice president made against the president. And so evidence that the National Bureau of Investigation have, and indeed, if the Department of Justice decides to file these criminal complaints against the vice president, prosecutors from the lower house can use all this evidence that the government has during the impeachment trial against the vice president in the Senate. The question now is when this impeachment trial will take place. The Senate president says it could happen in June or July. And between now and then, a lot of things can happen, Darren.
Barnaby, thank you.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.